Welcome back, everyone, to the Efficiency for Access Design Challenge webinar series. As usual, I'm your convener today, Sean. We're excited to have you all here, both live or if you're watching this recording. Remember, for all of you who have joined since we have launched this series, all recordings can be found online on our website or on the CrowdSolve page. Post-event materials will be shared on there as well, so you can check out that page afterwards. We can share a link at the end. I'm joined today by my colleague Jackie, who will be supporting, particularly in the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar and would prefer not to send it to the whole room, feel free to send it to her directly. That's Jackie Garcia. As usual, a bit of housekeeping before we begin. I'm recording this webinar and its transcript, which will be available online. So if you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your video and or mute yourself. We will share the recording with you and the slides following the event, again on CrowdSolve. Today we'll be hearing from 3 speakers who I will introduce you to in a moment. When they are presenting, please mute yourself to avoid any distractions. However, we encourage you to turn on both your mic and video for our Q&A portion. If you do have a question during the Q&A period, please use the hand raising function. I think you can see that on the toolbar. I think it's on the far right, and we will call upon you. Additionally, the chat will be open to questions and comments from our audience throughout the event. They can be sent in anonymously or to anyone or to everyone. And I encourage our speakers to participate there as well if they have the chance. Additionally, if you have any questions or you want to discuss the topic afterwards, the CrowdSolve page is open for that, and you can all discuss this topic in the comments, and we'll keep it lively in there. So remember, this year's webinars are organized around the different elements of the assessment criteria, these here. And you will have to address this same topic in your own design process. So I encourage you all to ask questions of our panelists while you have their attention. Today's session is, believe it or not, our first on the sustainability series. So you can find this in your challenge brief. We're specifically looking at these questions from your assessment criteria today. Is your design reducing the environmental impact throughout its life cycle compared to existing alternatives? Consider the whole product life cycle, materials used, repairability, and end of life. How does your design contribute towards greenhouse gas emission reduction compared to other technologies that exist in the market? Consider the sustainability of your business model, including manufacturing, distribution, and operating, and its scalability. So today is extra special because we're covering 2 questions as opposed to the usual 1. So I hope you can take away a lot from this session today. So the agenda, this is just a quick look at what we're doing today. We're now going through the introductions. I'll introduce you to our speakers in just a moment. We'll follow that with a Q&A portion, and then our usual surveys and closing. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our speakers. First up, we have Sonal. Sonal is a consultant working in the area of energy access and sustainability. She brings with her a multifaceted mix of sectors which range across distributed renewable energy, education, rural development, real estate, and most recently, e-commerce. Along the way, she's successfully performed various roles in project management consulting, operations, mentoring, account management, business development, and sales. With experience in an energy startup, she has led and built verticals from scratch and made them self-sustainable. She's trained to empower entrepreneurs and is passionate about working towards building sustainable development solutions. Welcome, Sonal. Next, we have Dozy Iguelo, is an entrepreneur and innovator passionate about renewable energy, consumer electronics, circular economy, and sustainability with Africa in view. He's the founder, CEO of QuadLoop, a social enterprise company that aims to develop solar lanterns and home systems by harnessing electronic and plastic waste materials. In July 2021, the company launched its flagship product, Idonu, meaning joy, derived from the Yoruba language, is a portable solar wall lantern that allows people in rural developing communities to light up homes and charge their phones. A graduate of economics in the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, he has undergone several entrepreneurial and technical trainings from General Electric's Lagos Garage, Africa, School of Electronics, Lagos, Enterprise Development Center of the Lagos Business School, and is currently a fellow at the Innovation Fellowship for Aspiring Inventors and Researchers, IFAIR. Finally, we'll hear from Anton Espira. Anton is one of the co-founders of Celebrium and oversees all growth and corporate strategy in the company. A Kenyan native, Anton is an etymologist by training with a PhD from the University of Oxford and has worked from academia through applied research to industry and entrepreneurship. He is also the co-founder of an award-winning biotech company based in San Francisco and Malaysia, focused on early-stage drug discovery, and a co-founder of Celebrium's award-winning parent company, Ecotilibrium, through which he has over 10 years of experience in natural resource conservation and social enterprises in rural settings in Africa. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming today and taking the time to speak to our students. I hope you find it all fruitful. And without further ado, maybe we can kick it off with Sonal. I'll be controlling the presentation. Just let me know when you'd like me to move on.
Hello, everybody. As Sean talked about that, I have my experience in distributed renewable energy and sustainability. So my presentation is centered more around those kinds of products and how can we add more sustainability to the products which are already, using renewable energy. How do we look at it from a holistic angle? Next slide, please. So just a slight agenda here that what am I going to run through is need for off-grid energy solutions. So what is the need that we have? Why do we need these solutions? What are the available options in the market? What is the theoretical impact assessment on the environment when we use these kind of products? How do we and why do we need to redefine the product or the design? And how can we get creative with the business model so that we achieve sustainability and reduce the emissions? Next slide. Okay, now coming to the need of off-grid solutions. Off-grid solutions, as you may be knowing, are the solutions which are placed in areas where there is no direct grid connectivity. So people are deprived of electricity, or they have electricity which is not very consistent and is erratic. So those are the areas where we need such solutions. And nowadays it is also being talked about, setting up off-grid energy to be away from the main grid. So the idea is you have your independence from the grid. There is no availability, and where people are dependent on high emission products and devices. So this kind of technology and usage finds its application in those areas. Next slide. Now, what are the available solutions? There are quite a few solutions available in the market and based on the energy ladder. So what we have is there are certain basic users of electricity, people who are really at the lowest level of the ladder, who just say need a light or a mobile charging point. And then you have solar home kits, you have nano grids, you have solar microgrids, mini grids, and then you go further and increase the size of these grids. And along with these, you have certain products which are used for productive usage, so that there is an indirect impact on the livelihood. So there are the basic products where it is as like you use it to kind of live. But there are products who are categorized as productive loads, which help improve your livelihood and your lifestyle. So we have solar water pumps, we have solar grinding machines, we have refrigerators, we have carpentry machines and things like that, which are used, using the solar energy to power these devices. Next slide. Now, talking on the negative impacts, yes, we have these solar products, but still there is a potential that these could have negative impact on the environment. One is when the products are designed, not everyone or not all companies think about end of product, the stage at the end of the product, and what is going to happen to the product. Like for example, solar pumps have been in the industry for almost 20 years now. Most of them are going to come to an end because panels have a lifespan of 25 years. A pump will have a lifespan of 10 years. So what is going to happen to these used products now? So yes, once they are going to be taken out from the project size, what will happen? There are poor quality products in the market, and which lead to a lot of service requirements, product getting wasted, customer getting dissatisfied. We have solar pumps, and at times, as per the need of the customer and not very good awareness, they kind of ask for oversizing the system, and the organizations also tend to do it for them. In that case, it could lead to over extraction of the groundwater, which actually was not required to be done in the first place. As I already mentioned, lack of awareness could be at the customer end, could be at the organization end, or could be at the employee end, and it could lead to a situation which can go beyond our control. And the components can also have a harmful impact. Like supposing if you have a solar home system and it has a battery, what is the plan for getting rid of that battery once its purpose is fulfilled? How is that handled? All these things have to be kept in mind while we kind of create a business model. Sean, if we could go to the next slide. Now, what are there are some of the proposed solutions. Like for instance, what is the organization's policy around tackling the end of cycle product disposal? We've seen so many solar home products, kits. Somebody's using them today. They have, say, used it for a year, and now they are rising the ladder. They need a bigger product. But what happens with the product which they already were using? Where does it go? Does it go lie in the dustbin, or is it floating around? What is happening with that? How is the organization involved in supporting their customers with such products which they don't need anymore? Improved product quality to reduce service request, returns, repurchases. By this, what I want to say is, when you have a good quality product, the customer is satisfied, and it lasts. So like when we live in urban areas, or when we buy a product, we do check for its reliability. We don't want products in the off-grid sector to be there just for the heck of it, and the customer has to give a call to the customer care department every third day that this is not working, that is not working. So the organizations who are entering or who are working in this sector, they have to ensure that the product quality is superior, so that there are minimum number of service requests, because every time you have a service request, an individual has to go to the site, and obviously he's going to travel on some kind of transportation, and again add to the emissions. So the best way is to have a product which is robust. Arrangements around groundwater recharge and improved agriculture practice. So if I link this to the example of solar pump, groundwater recharge facilities can be created. Farmers can be taught about awareness around good agricultural practices, good irrigation practices, so that they do not overutilize the water. I've seen in my career that two farmers growing rice just on the adjacent lands, and one of them was actually using 1.5 times more water than the other one. There was no logic, there was no reasoning, but because we were giving them water on a service model, we did realize that similar land size and the water consumption is different. So there is a need to create awareness in the minds of farmers that how can they improve their agriculture produce without kind of abusing the source available to them. And awareness campaigns to educate the end user. It is very important to create this awareness, because if they are aware, they they take steps judiciously, and they kind of take care of the assets. Sean, next slide, please. Redefining the product and the service. Now, from a business angle perspective, how does the organization redefine whether it's product or its service or its business model, so that the negative impact gets minimized? So for instance, we could add service lines or build partnerships to manage end of the product situation. As I said in my first slide, that a lot of organizations do not have this game plan of what are they going to do when the product comes to an end of its life. We could build partnerships even very early in the business that could kick off at the later date, but it will create an aura around the organization that yes, the organization is thinking ahead. Improvise the products. Like I said earlier, the product category, the product design and its robustness is definitely of help. Using technology in kind of, say for example, it helps you serve your clients better. It helps reduce emission by, like to give you an example, we had off-grid products, off-grid solar pumps in deep rural areas, and the service center was say 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers away. So the very first step was to use technology and understand what is the problem in the system. Does it actually need someone to go there, or can it be handled remotely? So that's how technology helped us in A, reducing our operational cost, and B, also reducing the impact on the environment. The other thing that I want to talk about is locally available products, and as these help you reduce cost, reduce emission. So if there is availability of locally available products, procurement should be carried out in such a manner so that these are relied upon. Now, coming to innovation in business model. Now, innovation in business model is very important. As you know, we are talking about innovation as a part of the topic here, and its impact on reducing the emission. Now, certain steps that can be taken are like buyback the used product when customer upgrades. So especially in this particular segment, like I mentioned earlier, you have a basic customer who uses solar light, and then they say move to 2 lights, fan, they move to a productive load. So what happens to the initial purchase? Can the company buy it back and give it to another customer at a reduced cost, or say create a local entrepreneur who is ready to buy back these used goods, and then he can create his market on its own, so that because the product has a life, it is not gone bad, so it can be used by someone else. Impanel and train local technicians. This has really helped me, I mean, in my past experience, that once you have local technicians on the ground, you save a lot on time and energy. And also it gives the locals a chance to serve their community and make a living out there by using the infra which is available close to their village. Second-hand product sale to local businesses, as I just mentioned in my previous example, that one way is to buy the product from the end user and sell it, say, to a local entrepreneur, and he can create a business out of it. And another innovation example could be solar water pumping companies. What they generally do, they're like 2 categories. One is the product manufacturer, which manufactures solar pumps. There is another category which is kind of not manufacturing, because solar pump is like more of a project. So they are system integrators. Now these system integrators or the pump providers can actually come to the site and do 2 things. One is give a solar pumping system to the end user, and second, also say provide a service around groundwater recharge, because groundwater recharge, you'll probably have to, the farmer will have to go and find another vendor. But if supposing this organization can add this as a service line, it's a win-win for both. Sean, I think, yeah. So that is what I wanted to talk about, that we have to look at the business from 360-degree point of view, that where we are today and where will we go tomorrow, and how do we take the entire value chain with us so that we reduce the impact at each and every step. We are using renewable energy, but that's that's not going to serve the entire purpose. We have to take care of minor things on the way to be able to contribute in a total emission reduction. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. Yeah, really important for everyone to take these considerations. Sonal offered a lot of considerations for you all to make in terms of mitigation, and to consider that at each stage, because as she mentioned, it's not only in the manufacturing, but it's in the business model, it's your scalability. So all things to take away from this, especially for any of you working on solar water pumps. I know there are a few teams working on solar water pumps. Okay, thank you, Sonal. If you have any questions, Sona will be around for the end of the session as well, for the Q&A period. Next up, we have Dozy. Dozy, would you like to take it away? I will just stop sharing my screen. I don't think you're not using slides today, correct? So
no, I'm not using any slides.
There we go. So I'll just give the floor to you, and you take it away for your section.
Okay, thank you so much, Son. Thank you so much, Sonia, for the soft landing. I think you've already made most of the points. Well, I'm just going to add the second topic, which talks about how to decrease environmental impact on emissions through design. So I'll be highlighting from two stakeholders, which is the one, the OEM, and the other one's the end user. So for the OEMs, we have to look into how these guys manufacture their products, having to understand design thinking from, end of life from design, right? So product life and how the product will perform is one of the things that should be considered by the OEM themselves. Quality is another thing, function and efficiency, and of course, aesthetics. So I'm going to take this one after the other. First, quality. Building a quality product, it's going to help to stand the test of time. In other words, reduce the level and the rate at which the end user tend to exchange or change or, get a new product, acquire a new product, right? The process involves, the OEMs to actually make sure they use good components to actually build the product. And of course, having in mind to have replaceable parts. So replaceable parts is another angle whereby OEMs would design the products whereby you can actually have service parts. Let me use a company, a social enterprise called Fairphone. Fairphone actually produces mobile phones that you can actually replace the parts easily, right? So when this happens, maybe a particular section, maybe the earpiece, mouthpiece, or what have you, is bad. You just have to take that part off and replace it. That way, you reduce the amount of e-waste that goes to the landfill. Another one is functionality and efficiency from the OEM perspective. So functionality talks about what the product offers and how efficient this product is. So looking at that angle, if the OEMs produce and manufacture products that is quite efficient, it helps to stand the test of time, giving the user optimal value and reduces the amount of waste that goes to the landfill. And the third one has to do with appearance or probably aesthetics. So the OEMs, again, from the OEM point of view, the OEMs has to consider product aesthetics, products that will stand a decade or, half a decade, as opposed to building products that will fade away, product that would have a very odd look over a short period of time. This kind of product doesn't really help the user to enjoy the value for money, right? Because they turn out to be very old and archaic. So that way they want to buy a newer version of what the OEM or other products, right? So producing products that appear very, very, aesthetically okay, that can stand the test of time is one of the key things that we should look at from the OEM part. So the other side of the stakeholders has to do with the users. And I think Sonia, I've already highlighted some point, but I just want to chip a few things around disposal at the end of life. So the users have to understand how to dispose, think about what happened to the product at the end of life, how you can recycle it, probably have it sent back to the OEMs or the distributor or retailer or what have you, and probably get paid for it. So these things don't end up in the trash. So it goes back and items will be reused or recycled, refurbished or what have you. And another part, again, I want to highlight from the users is eco-friendly, eco-design rather. So users should try and purchase more products that has probably like an eco-friendly label on it. That way, making people understand that this product is being manufactured not to pollute the environment, but to actually save and reduce waste. So that way, if they encourage, there's a life cycle to it, right? The products that are branded eco-friendly are probably going to go back to the OEMs, stakeholders, or I mean, back to the manufacturers rather. Another one I wanted to really touch real quick has to do with choosing the materials from the OEM part, materials that should be used for manufacturing. I mean, we've had cases of materials that are poisonous during manufacturing, and of course, during being used by the end users. So improving processes, manufacturing processes too, do help to reduce what's called to reduce electronic and plastic waste back to the environment. And lastly, marketing. Marketing talks more about how the OEM will present their products, because most of these solar lanterns, solar home systems are being used by younger generations, from millennials to Gen Z. So you have to let them understand that they are actually offering a product that is friendly to the environment, as opposed to products that is harmful. So in a nutshell, I just want to round up by saying having to decrease the environmental impact and emissions through design is the two-way channel from the OEM and the end user. I think I will entertain further questions from this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Dozy. Oh, let me just start my video. Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I think you have to balance the mitigation elements of your design as well with other elements of design, such as the way it looks, the way it can sell. So very important. I'm sure the students will have questions for you at the end. And let me just share my screen. Let me pull this up. And next up, we'll be hearing from Anton, joining us all the way from California early in the morning. Thank you, Anton. And the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sonal and Dozy. My colleagues have spoken about almost everything that's important, so that doesn't leave me much to say, but I just want to be a little bit more focused on the items that we need to consider. I'll be talking about life cycle analysis briefly after this, but I just want to touch very quickly on how we assess the environmental impact of a product. The standard consideration for environmental impact is, of course, based on the environment. We look at the impact of material extraction, production, packaging and distribution, the use, the end of use, and of course, how it's treated or recovered. As you consider your designs, these are key criteria. Right now, it's very difficult to do environmental impact assessment of the manufacturing process for various reasons, but one of them is because many OEMs and generally many manufacturers do not reveal details about the production and the material extraction. However, if you want to look at it completely, you have to look at all those steps. In general, we should consider environmental impact in a very holistic manner, as Sonal and Dozy mentioned. Traditionally, we focused on the planet, but I think right now we can shift that to focus on the planet, on people, and on economic benefits. This leads us to considerations of a circular economy. So when you're designing a product, you have to consider its role within the larger circular economy. This brings to question what you should consider in your design. And your consideration should not just focus on the environmental impact of waste, but they should also focus on long-term sustainability of the product. Right now, Sonal mentioned many of the possible unintended negative consequences of solar power use. So right now, the model is pretty simple. Most solar products are manufactured in developed nations and exported to the global south, particularly in the case of Africa. That, of course, helps with reducing emissions. People don't join the grid. But one of the key questions is how much revenue actually goes from the global south back to the north, to the manufacturers and to etc. I think at the beginning of this session, it was mentioned that Dozie is creating some innovative new products locally in Nigeria. So that's a really important point. So let's go back a step and let's consider what are the key factors to have in mind when designing a product to minimize its environmental impact. I want to touch on 4 of them. The first has been quite well explored. That is quality of the product, repairability, and reuse. So if you design a product, as Sonal mentioned and Dozie mentioned, make sure it is high quality, make sure that it can be reused and repaired, and make sure that it is aesthetically pleasant so that people will buy it and will keep it. A second point that hasn't been mentioned is modularity. In the solar home system market, modularity is really important. What I mean by modularity is the ability to join many products together so you don't have to keep buying new products. I'll give a simple example. A person can enter the market through the purchase of a small solar home system, say with 3 lights. Within a year, that person can decide that, oh, they would like a television. Right now, the way the market is structured is that if you want a television solar home system, you have to go out and buy another system while you already have a system in the house that has a solar panel, a small battery, and 3 lights, for example. So in considering your design, consider the importance of modularity. So if I want to add a television to my system, I don't have to buy a completely new system. I can buy a second battery that I can plug into the first battery. I can buy a television that I can plug into the original system. I can buy extra lights and etc. So modularity is very important in building a circular economy. The third point I'd like to touch on is something that also Sonal and Dozie have touched on, and that's value creation. So don't just consider the environmental impact of your designs. Consider how much value your design creates to the economy in which it will be sold. Value creation includes jobs, includes business model creation, and things like that. You don't want to design a product that is imported into a developing nation, and it's just left there until its end of life, and then disposal has to happen. You want to create a product that can be repaired. You want to create a product that can be used for a long period of time, and you want to create a product that's price competitive. Just a quick example, many of the areas we work in, people live on anything between $2 to $5 a day. Now, imagine your income is $3 a day and you're spending 50 cents or $1 paying for solar electricity. That is not a sustainable model, and that is an exploitative model. So when considering value creation, you should consider the price of the product you're developing. The last one I'd like to touch on is development. And this is again something that has been touched on briefly. For a sustainable product, it needs to have a lot of local materials. It needs to have a lot of local innovations included as well. So Kenya is an example. Kenya manufactures solar panels, but almost none of the solar systems sold in Kenya use locally manufactured Kenyan solar panels. That shouldn't be the case. If you have a solar home system designed that is modular and that's easily repairable, you can focus on utilizing as many locally manufactured products as possible. So work on having technology transfer, work on having knowledge transfer to the economy in which you want to sell the product, and then only manufacture the key bits that cannot be manufactured locally outside that country. If you consider these 4 factors, repair and end of life, modularity, value creation, and economic development, you will have tackled a lot of the problems that hold back sustainability. Sean, next slide, please. So we have looked at life cycle analysis among several products that we retail in Kenya. And the graphs show some of the examples that we've found. Generally, if we compare a best case scenario where there's repair and recyclability in a product compared to the current business as usual, we find that improved environmental concerns reduce the potential for an environmental impact by as much as 29% for large solar home systems. The graph on the right gives you an example of what we looked at. We gave environmental impact points to products. The graph shows the difference between a small solar home system and a TV solar home system, but it shows the overall environmental impact of two business models. One is the business as usual model. That's the taller bar on the on the right. And that shows that if you don't change the way that we handle solar home system disposal at the moment, the environmental impact is huge. If we include recycling and we include repair, then the environmental impact falls significantly. The graph on the lower left of the slide shows the changes in environmental impact, specifically in emissions, based on different model types, different business models. We tried different models in Kakamega in Kenya that includes buyback and lease compared to the regular model. The regular model of solar home system sales in Africa right now is a pay-as-you-go model where you take a solar home system home and you pay for the system anything from over 6 months to 1 year or as long as 2 years. This model does not encourage people to recycle their products, and there's no provisions for recycling. We tried a buyback model where we allow customers to bring back components that don't work, and we replace them with components that work. And we noticed a reduction of about 22% in CO2 emissions from this model. We also tried a lease model for sale. A lease model is where the customer does not own the product, but is able to replace components that are not working, is able to upgrade the product over time, and is able to basically continue using the product as long as they want to. In this case, for example, if I start with a 3-light system and I pay for it, I can always come back and I can upgrade it to a larger system. If any part of my system doesn't work, I can also just bring the part that doesn't work back to the service center and get a new part. So the lease model had the least CO2 emissions. Just to touch on what are the components of the solar home system that have the highest environmental impact. As everybody knows, the most valuable and the most expensive component on a solar home system is the battery. The battery is also the component with the shortest lifespan. Solar panels can last easily up to 20 years. I have had solar panels at my home in Kenya for over 25 years, and I have never had to replace them. And I am completely off grid. I never have to worry about using electricity. So assume solar panels have a lifespan of about 20 years. That's pretty good. Wiring light bulbs have a slightly shorter lifespan, but they can easily last 10 years. New light bulbs, the designs of new light bulbs are so good that they can easily do 25,000, 50,000 hours of lighting. The battery, on the other hand, can last as little as 3 years, but in most times it lasts about 5 years. The battery is the heaviest component. It's the component that takes the most materials to manufacture. And it also is the component that has the most negative impact during disposal. So in designing solar home systems or any solar products, consider the impact of each of the components and work as hard as you can to make sure that the impact of the battery, which is the heaviest, the most expensive, and the shortest lifespan product, is reduced as much as possible. This is where modularity comes into play, and this is where the battery design becomes important. Many of you are engineers, so you will know that the standard batteries used right now, lithium-ion batteries, consist of multiple cells packaged within a single larger battery. we found that when a battery fails, it's usually the case that it's one or two cells that fails while the rest are still functional. So designing a battery that's repairable is really critical to reducing the environmental impact of a solar product. I don't think I have much more time, so I don't want to go on too much on that. But just to highlight, the main thing is to reduce the unintended negative consequences of renewable energy, and the main focus should be on how we can spread the benefits of all of the products that we sell to all the communities that use them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Some really key things to take away for the students there that I think will be able to implement a design. I mean, they should be able to with ease, the modularity, the ability to repair. And I hope everyone has some questions for all of them today. There's some, it seems that mitigation can be implemented into all areas of design. So feel free to send in your questions. Let me just open up the chat. Okay. Keep sending in your questions, but we have here, I think maybe this one for, I'll leave this one open actually. How do you build a device that will stand up to future innovations in order for it not to be replaced in very little time? Is there anyone that wants to grab that quickly?
Can you repeat that quickly, Sean?
How do you build a device that will stand up to future innovations so it will not be replaced in a short period of time, be thrown out?
We'll consider what the product is, what function the product will serve. So that's quite important. And then stay away from the idea that the product is supposed to serve a very minimal function. Just very quickly, I'd like to give an idea, an example of vehicles in Africa. I mean, you can find 30 or 40-year-old vehicles driving in Africa for a simple reason. They're easily repairable and they have components that can be interchanged. So for example, I can buy, if a single unit, if a single component fails, I can replace that and my vehicle will still run. So I think that's pretty important to consider. Make sure that products have interchangeable parts, make sure that products can be improved without having to throw the whole product away.
Okay, thanks, Anton. Let me know if you have any follow-ups. The next question is for Sonal. In her experience, how simple has it been to recruit and train local people to operate/maintain solar systems?
I think it has not been very difficult. It was the teams who were actually going to the site and working at the project sites. They found it pretty comfortable to find the locals and train them, because there is no dearth of people out there. In fact, what actually happens is people in rural area migrate. They go to urban areas and do petty jobs. But instead, if an organization is able to offer them a few, like if I say in Indian currency, a few rupees or few thousands, even lesser than what they would make in an urban area, it still gives them a comfort that they are in their own village, they are able to contribute and continue with their lifestyle. So finding the people was not very difficult. Difficulty comes in communicating the content. So if your content is designed in a manner that it makes the locals understand it, because not everyone would be at a particular level. So say they are educated till say 10th standard or a 12th standard. So you will have to communicate your concepts and your requirements to them in a manner so that they understand it properly and they're able to process it. And then I mean, a lot of local governments provide support, like there are ITI programs in India wherein these locals are trained and they're actually certified. So the organizations can either, help facilitate that process and make these locals attend one of these centers so that they can say legally, go and execute and help on the project. So it's just that your content should be delivered in a manner so that it's understood by them, but they are open to accepting the challenge. I hope I answered that correctly.
Thank you, Sonal. It's really useful.
Thanks, Sonal. I think we have another question, but there's another one in this chat. Maybe for Dozy, is there a trade-off in quality we have to consider when using recycled materials?
Okay, so let me get that question again.
Is there a trade-off in quality we have to consider when using recycled materials?
Yes, there's a trade-off in quality because, of course, what we do, we leverage electronic waste to build our product. So an example is the lithium-ion battery, which is gotten from old laptops. That is what we use to power the lantern. We understand that the lithium-ion battery has already saved about maybe 30 to 40% of its lifespan. We can't get optimum of 100%. So that's why we have designed the solar lantern in a way whereby customers can have the battery replaced for a token. So we did not enclose the lantern in a way whereby it's difficult for the customer or the end user to change swap batteries. We have designed the lantern in a way whereby you can just take out the batteries like the way you do for your remote control, right? So the thing is this, we sell this product at affordable rates, making you understand that these are not like a regular OEM product that gives you the whole 5-year lifespan. It just provides you sufficient power for a period of time. If you have any issues with the battery, it's easily replaceable for a token. So I think that answers that question.
Okay, thanks, Dozy.
You're
Something
welcome.
for people to consider into the business model as well. I think the next one is for Anton. In a situation where the design requires importation of parts, how do you ensure that it has replaceable parts? And is it still economical to employ the buyback business model?
Okay, so I'll answer the second part. That's pretty easy. So it's a very good question, actually. The buyback model is not economically feasible. It's not profitable with many of the current systems in place. So the buyback works in such a way that we can buy back a component that's not working and we can repair it and sell it as a second-hand component, much as Dozy does with the lanterns. So that's a very good example. However, many solar home systems are not repairable. So once you open it up, once you open the battery, you have to throw it away. So we found that only 2 manufacturers produce products that can be easily repaired. And if we retail those products, then the buyback model becomes feasible. But for other products, the buyback model is not economically feasible. So that's a very good point. So a lot of the problems with sustainable business models is that they work very well on paper, but when you actually have to do it on the ground, it's a completely different question. And that's what brings me to the fourth point I made about the third and fourth point about value creation and about ensuring that you support development in this business. To the first part, how do you ensure that parts are replaceable? You cannot. We need to have large organizations such as Google pushing for this. We cannot force solar manufacturers to design products with replaceable parts, and neither can we force them to provide spare parts. So the absence of spare parts is one of the biggest challenges we found towards repairing solar home systems. So we need organizations at a higher level to actually come together and make the change. So we need global standards and we need a global movement towards this. One thing that we can hope for is that our governments can push for this change. So for example, if a government says that it will only allow the importation of repairable solar home systems, that's a very good step forward. But at the level of a last mile distributor, such as Solibrium in Kenya, we don't have the power to force that. But those are two very good questions. Thank you, Asen.
Thanks, Anton. Okay, I think we're just about running out of time, but if any people have any other questions, I think we have one here. Open to the floor. How can we determine the life cycle of a design that is fully repairable and modular? I guess if any one part is going to be able to be repaired. Sure, Anton, go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, are you talking about how to calculate the life cycle impact? I mean, if that is the case, then you have to, of course, assume what the lifespan of the product is, and you have to consider the environmental impact of the repair process and etc. But there is standard methodologies for life cycle analysis, and you can plug in variables that that are relevant to the particular product that you're looking at. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you mean how to consider all the repair factors and all the stuff like that, then you just break it down into components, and you should be able to do a life cycle analysis.
Okay, thanks, Anton. I hope that answers it. If you have any follow-up, please write in. Okay, if there are no other questions, if you have any questions, just raise your hand or send them in the chat. Otherwise, we can start wrapping up today's session. But I'll just, while we're here, I'll just mention we have this short feedback survey that just takes a moment to fill out. Please, everyone who's here watching the recording, please fill out the survey. It helps us improve each session. You can follow this QR code with your phone, or just follow the link here. It'll also be posted in the chat in a moment. So please fill it out. We also have a newsletter sign up. So please sign up for the newsletter, particularly if you're taking part in the design challenge. It's good to get up with all the news, know when the webinars are coming up. We have some interesting stories in there, so please sign up to that. I don't think there are any more questions, so I'll just say thank you. Thank you to Sonal, Dozy, and Anton. It was a pleasure to have you. Great to have your expertise on the panel. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you so much, son. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
everyone have a good day.